My brothers and sisters, may the Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. Jesus began to speak to the chief priests, the scribes, and the elders in parables. A man planted a vineyard, put a hedge around it, dug a wine press, and built a tower. Then he leased it to tenant farmers and left on a journey. At the proper time, he sent a servant to the tenants to obtain from them some of the produce of the vineyard. But they seized him, beat him, and sent him away empty-handed. Again he sent them another servant, and that one they beat over the head and treated shamefully. He sent yet another whom they killed. So too many others, some they beat, others they killed. He had one other to send, a beloved son. He sent him to them last of all, thinking, they will respect my son. But those tenants said to one another, this is the heir, come, let us kill him, and the inheritance will be ours. So they seized him and killed him and threw him out of the vineyard. What then will the owner of the vineyard do? He will come and put the tenants to death and give the vineyard to others. Have you not read the scripture passage? The stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. By the Lord has this been done, and it is wonderful in our eyes. They were seeking to arrest him, but they feared the crowd, for they realized that he had addressed the parable to them. And so they left him and went away. The Gospel of the Lord. This parable that Jesus gives us according to the account of Mark is surely a very powerful one as it describes for us and defines the relationship very clearly that exists between God as Father, who made a nation out of Israel, who gives it a sense of authority and a sense of place and mission, and who in turn calls it to new life, and over again it ends up not responding to that response and call that God asks for. Obviously, they had a sense that they were talking to him, that they were talking to them rather, that Jesus was having this so focused upon them, and they wanted to arrest him, but they feared the crowd, so we are told. And I'm sure in the early church, this particular gospel story and parable had even much more power to it once the resurrection event occurred, and once there was a realization that indeed the favored son, the beloved son, was Jesus, and that the Father was God himself. Ever since, there have been many people who perhaps get part of the message, but just can't quite let go of their own agenda, or can't quite let go of the things that they want. And so they fight the call, they fight the message of the gospel. And sometimes they're very blind to it, even to the point of walking away from it. Faith is always necessary in order to hear the message well. So as we gather this morning again as a people of faith, let's be mindful of the fact that we too have to be attuned and opened to God's ways and will rather than our own, and to recognize that sometimes in subtle fashions we too fall prey to the same kind of response that unfortunately is given by the chief priests and the scribes and the elders in the story of Jesus' life here on this earth, that we end up trying to put him and put God into our context rather than the way that God plans to work.